What up, y'all? This is Jamba, and I'm here with another video. I know it's been a minute, been off and on, doing work, doing some stand up, doing a little writing, but I'm back. May not be doing as many Pop the Balloon videos. I mean, as much as I like them, they're beginning a little. I don't know. I might do some of them, but yeah, I'm just kind of thinking about what I'm trying to do with this content and trying to be a just a little bit more consistent. Because the YouTube game is you got to be consistent, man. You got to really be in it to win it. In this, so you know. But anyways, I found this video to be interesting. I watched like the first 5 seconds of it. I'm like, you know what? Let me react to this one. Let me react to this one. This one is called this shift in masculinity is scary. Now, the reason you can't see it now, but the thumbnail of this video was the thing that interested me. On one end, it was a picture of James Bond, Sean Connery as James Bond, right? And on the other end, it was a picture of Alan Richardson as Jack Reacher. Now, if you know anything about Alan Richardson, he's a big, jacked white guy, blonde, very kind of square jawed, kind of Chad like features. And then you have Sean Connery, which is a more of the old school 60s kind of version of what masculinity kind of used to be, like a distinguished man. Like, I'm Sean Connery and I like to beat women, like, that whole that whole thing. So I found that dichotomy to be interesting. So let's see. This is a Charisma on Command, which I don't watch. I'm not. I don't want to say I'm not a normie, but I don't really watch their videos. They got 6 million, 6.92 million subscribers, so people are watching them. And this video has I'm pretty sure at least 100,000, 300,000 views. So yeah, this is pretty relevant. And let's just dive in. Let's dive in.
Bad is going on with young men. It's bad for them, and it's bad for the women around them.
Hold on.
Something bad is going on with young men. It's bad for them, and it's bad for the women around them.
I have been feeling and seeing how poorly young men are doing.
Why are men and boys struggling?
Why are men in such crisis?
And what made me really see it is a bit silly, but stick with me here.
The funny thing about the Maslow's question is that they rarely, if ever, bring young men on to actually talk about their problems, and if they do, it's usually in a way to kind of fit their agenda. Rarely, I'm not saying that they never do it, but rarely do they ever bring on the actual young men that they're referring to. Rarely.
It was the Amazon Prime show Reacher. Now, if you haven't seen it, Reacher is a show based on the Lee Child novels of the same name. They're action-packed male fantasy fulfillment. And in them, we follow Reacher, the impossibly jacked wanderer who...
Yeah, that's Alan Richardson. He's actually was my pick for Batman. I mean, he might be a little bit too old to be the new James Gunn. Not trying to get all into the James Gunn DC stuff, but yeah. So he was actually my pick for Batman at one point.
Who miraculously doesn't go to the gym and eats whatever he wants.
How do you eat like that and still look like you do?
Like this.
He kills bad guys, saves the day, and beds a new woman most every book. This is nothing new in the male fantasy fulfillment genre, except there is something that's weirdly new. In the show, Reacher, who is the most assertive...
Mind you, this guy is like in the books, he's like 6'6" or something. Alan Richardson, he's like about 6'4", but he appears in the movie, like how they shoot him to look really, really big. It's actually pretty effective, because one thing I do like about it is that you buy that he's able to beat up all these. Like I buy the show. I haven't seen a second season. This first season I did enjoy quite a bit. Anyways,
dominant action hero you could ever imagine in your wildest dreams never initiates anything sexual.
Oh,
Our customers, they love
I promise at one point.
how unique our pieces are. They love the prints.
At one point.
Anna, wash your mouth, wash your catch your flies.
He's entirely passive with his female leads. We barely even see him look at the leading lady, who inevitably has to make the first, second, and third move before throwing herself at him.
That's because he looks like Alan Richardson. I understand where they're about to go with this, but he looks like Alan. I've known dudes like this where dudes that I played with, where they don't really have to initiate because they look good. They don't really have to initiate shit with women. Women just kind of start to initiate with them, and then they just kind of go from there, right? So
This was not the case in the books from the early 2000s. It's an amendment from the 2020 show.
Do it just becomes like a fantasy of.
I actually have that book. I should read it. I have that book. I started to read it. I'm not like a book guy. I started to read that book. I don't know. I guess I just rather watch the show.
This guy who every guy wants to be. You want to get the girl in every town you visit, and Jack Reacher fulfills that fantasy.
And just so you know that I'm not exaggerating here, in season 1, after asking him to dance and hanging out in a hotel room with him in her underwear, Roscoe literally has to walk in on Reacher showering to make something happen between them. And she, of course, leans in for the kiss in case he didn't pick up on her intention. In season 2, Dixon indirectly asks Reacher out at work.
Will you buy me a drink?
I gotta keep working on these reports.
This is funny. I'm actually okay. All right. This guy, he's getting somewhere.
Maybe next time.
Yeah.
Then she directly asks him why he didn't do anything about it.
Is that why? Back in the day, you and I never happened. I mean, come on, Reacher. It's not like I didn't drop any hints.
Then she has him play doctor with a wound on her breast. And when he doesn't lean in, then she finally throws herself at him.
You don't have to be lonely tonight.
Yep.
As the relationship continues, she makes every overt move.
Yeah. Now, here's where I think he's going. Not to kind of, I haven't seen this, right? So that's why I've been kind of just watching it with y'all. It seems like this guy is going to go in a direction where this is kind of indirectly or directly teaching men to be passive, or that to be passive, and if a woman does not initiate, then she is not into you. The problem with this assessment, if this is the assessment, is that there's truth in that in today's day and age, right? Is that it's like, if generally speaking, if they're not going to initiate, or I don't want to say throw themselves at you, but if they're not doing that to a certain degree, then there's a good chance that if you try to initiate, you are going to be wrong. You are going to, and I'm not saying that men shouldn't initiate, but it's just a little bit more risky. I mean, you know what? Let's continue.
Shot at by hitmen and almost blown up. I mean, to put it mildly. I've got some pent-up tension.
Season 3 is the same exact dance until Duffy finally just leans in and jumps Reacher.
I can still make sure she stays safe. I know it's important to you, so I want to make sure.
Later, Reacher...
The reason it makes sense for his character, though, because he's never had to do shit. This is how it works for him. You know what I mean? Like, so...
bashfully compliments her, but of course can barely hold eye contact.
If he cheated on you, he's an idiot.
And in the middle of tactical planning for a coming shootout, she completely jumps Reacher's bones.
You really want to make me feel better? I got an idea.
Oh God, I haven't seen none of the second. I would do at some point. I'll watch the second season, maybe. I don't know.
Now, I'm not saying that we should go back to the cardboard cutout female characters with zero agency. The male fantasy genre 50 years ago had its own issues.
Man talk.
What I'm saying...
That was funny. Not like that, ladies, but it was funny how egregious it was. Can we be honest? Can we be honest on that?
Is that if Reacher is the updated male fantasy, we need to ask ourselves, what does this fantasy of sexual passivity tell us about young men today? Think about that. Because
no. He's already fucking up. He says, what does it tell us about young men today? It should really be asking, what does it tell you about young women today? That's what he should be asking the question of. That's what he should be asking. Because a lot of this is a response to what has been happening in the current society, dating, at the gym, clubs, out and about, etc. You can't address just one part of the seesaw without addressing the other end of the seesaw. a lot of women don't want to be pursued by men who are not attractive. So if they're only going to be pursuing men that they find to be heavily attractive, then those men do not, generally speaking, have to initiate. I'm pretty sure that this man is not going to address the other elephant in the room. If you want to address the men, then fine. It's charisma on command. I know this is primarily for men, but you have to be, but it needs to be a balanced conversation, or else you're only getting one half of the equation.
Before I give you my answer, I want to tell you about the male fantasies of my bygone era, the 2000s, and what they told us about my generation.
This is where a lot of the bullshit came in, because I was kind of a part of this as well. I grew up on, I didn't watch American Pie, but I that was my era. American Pie, movies like Love Don't Cost a Thing, movies like Spider-Man, with Tobey Maguire. I grew up on these, a lot of these stuff he's going to talk about, but that fucking Scott Pilgrim, the Superbads, and all this other stuff. But that those movies were geek. Hopefully he talks about it. Those were geek power fantasies of people, screenwriters. Don't ask me how I know. Screenwriters who themselves were not the most, popular, maybe super masculine, uber masculine, buffed, ripped, tall, athletic people. Most screenwriters are not those dudes. Most were not. Most writers are not fucking Hemingway, right? So what they did was they wrote and came up with characters that they can relate to, that the quote unquote every man can relate to, who got the girl based on his ability to, maybe have good character, be the hero of the story, be the underdog, and the underdog overcomes. But that is not a reflection of what reality is. And that's why a lot of these men who grew up on this bullshit ended up getting screwed over, punched in the mouth in the dating market, X, Y, and Z, right? So let's see. I'm a pause. I gotta go get some chips. Okay, gotta get some chips. Okay, got my Lays. We're good to go. All right, back to this.
You see, when I was a teen, there was one movie that mirrored the dream of
Girls Next Door. All these movies were BS, bro. All these movies were power fantasies. They were based in a reality, but it never told young men the actual real lesson here. I would say that a lot of these movies in the early 2000s, even like the Breakfast Club movies, like movies like Pretty in Pink, a lot of these movies led men astray. A lot of these movies taught men the wrong lessons, not just about women and dating, but the wrong lessons about fucking life. And I'm saying this as a person who really, really loves movies.
so many young men and their hopes about women. The Girl Next Door. My God, did this movie hook me.
I personally kind of find it a perfect film, in my opinion.
Of course you find it to be a perfect film. I'm not trying to be a dickhead. Of course you think it's a perfect film. Sorry. I'm not trying to be a dickhead. I'm not a perfect looking guy. Look at this guy. The movie Girls Next Door gave this guy the fantasy that, hey, if I'm in the right place in the right time, girl next, it's a fantasy for this guy. That's what it is. You think you think the quarterback, you think the guys who were the star fucking basketball player, you think those guys related to this fucking movie growing up? More than likely not. More than likely not. And if you don't know what Girls Next Door, just look it up on Wikipedia. Go watch it on maybe Netflix or something. I've seen bits and pieces. But that being said, though,
At least,
it's the teen fantasy that lit up the early 2000s. The Girl Next Door became an instant cult favorite.
In it, Maddie, who is played by Emile Hirsch, has a stunningly beautiful girl move in next door to him. And when she does, his entire life is turned upside down by her impact on him.
Finding that one thing you really care about. That one special thing that means more to you than anything else in the world.
Now, the fantasy, which is specific to the 2000s, is that she sees something in him without him doing anything stereotypically attractive. Maddie gets the girl of his dream.
And the other messed up piece of it is they will cast these dudes like Emile Hirsch or like they'll cast these guys and make them the losers in the movie. When if you think about it, a guy like Emile Hirsch would have more than likely been the cool guy because he's an actor, so he's objectively more than likely going to be attractive anyway. They're not getting actual unattractive dudes to play these roles. So what it does is it tricks the men into believing that, hey, I'm an average dude, he's average, but in actuality, Emil Hirsch isn't average, even though the movie tries to portray him like he's average. Somebody who might have like maybe like a guy like Michael Cera might be a little bit kind of closer. But anyways, that being said,
just by being his nerdy, previously unnoticed self.
Right.
She literally appears next door and just likes him. This was, of course, my fantasy and the wish of many mathletes across the world.
I'm all wet. Can I come in?
But even though Maddie is smaller and nerdier and way less capable, there's one thing he has that Reacher doesn't. He is undeniably attracted to Danielle. His desire for her cannot be hidden or suppressed, and his victory is in acting on that desire despite not being the stereotypical hot guy. In the Act 1 climax, which is such an iconic scene that I wish I could just play it outright, Maddie's at a party, and the jock has just slid up on his girl. Maddie is out.
Man, what's up? Can you come here for a second?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's cool. They're pals.
Danielle is now with the jock because, come on, look at that guy. And just as Maddie's about to leave in defeat, something shifts. Maddie acts on his desire, and we get one of the defining shots of my teenage life. Maddie wins because he goes for it. He doesn't do a million push-ups or beat anyone up. He just goes for it. This is the inverse of Reacher, who is super high agency in every action scene.
If you boys knew what's about to happen to you, you'd leave now.
You can't, dude. So here's my problem with charisma with this, right? You can't on one end say that the movie is a fantasy, right? Because we know that it is, right? That the whole setup, the scenario of the girls next door, the fact that she appears. I mean, and I'm not saying it's a fantasy in a bad way. I'm just telling you like what it is, right? You can't on one end say that that's a fantasy, but then say that, okay, well, you know, he's acting on it and trying to you're praising the character for having the agency, which I can understand, but it's still within the context of it being a fantasy. It's so it's in a context of you. Yes, of course you can have the quote unquote agency and have the whole notion of I'm going to go. I'm going just go for it, right? But that's because the very setup of the damn movie is an unreal scenario. It's a completely unreal scenario. I would argue that this Jack Reacher, even though Jack Reacher is about this 6'12", you know, hyper Jack, even sure, but to me, that scenario was a lot more realistic than the girls next door scenario. Far more.
So I give you to the count of 3.
1.
But totally passive around women.
Because he can be. Do y'all not see how stupid this is? Got lays on me. He's totally passive because he can be. Because he doesn't need to. Why would he need to be? And maybe, look, we could talk about why this will be a problem for average men looking at this, you know, but it makes sense. He does not need to be. He doesn't. If he is a guy who is focused on his mission, focused on capturing the bad guys, focused on solving the mission, whatever, women in his world come secondary or tertiary, whatever the like, that's not a priority for him because he's going to get it anyway. He's always has gotten it. So I'm just look at him and then look at the other, even though the other guy in the movie Girls Next Door is not an ugly dude or whatever, but he like it's a little bit different, right? Let's look. Charisma on command. He's not losing me completely, but let's just kind of see where this goes.
Good thing I'm doing the asking. Come on.
Now, of course, this is a teen movie and Reacher's action-based, so maybe it's an unfair comparison. So let's look at an action film from the same 2000s era, Casino Royale.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
We have the same impossibly capable lead who kills bad guys and gets the girl.
It doesn't bother you killing those people.
I wouldn't be very good at my job if it did.
But in 2006, he of course still wants her. Bond's desire for Vesper is immediate, and he's anything but passive in communicating it.
I'm the money.
Every penny of it.
So, as far as I can remember, in the 2000s, male desire for women still existed in that stereotypical male fantasy genre. Victory came from risking rejection to act on that desire.
That one special thing that means more to you than anything else in the world.
Here's what you got to factor in, buddy. Here's what you got to factor in. What would be? Here's what, and I bet you this guy's not going to talk about this. And shout out to Charisma on Command. You know, shout out to him. I bet you he's not going to factor in what women actually feel about these movies of the early 2000s. Ask a woman, like, because this was the movie, Girls Next Door was a movie of the teen era. It's like, ask a woman in 2025, ask any young woman to sit down and watch this movie and ask her what she thinks about, not just about like the jokes and stuff, because we all know there's probably like some sexist stuff or some stuff that's cancelable, but ask her how she feels about this. Ask her what she feels about, though, like, just ask them. Ask them. I'm not saying that most of them are going to be, like, are going to hate this, but just, I would say how women feel about these movies matter just as much, if not more, than how men used to feel about these movies. We can't just sit here and say that this, I'm not saying he's saying that, but we can't just sit here and say that this thing of men and, you know, in Reacher's case being passive just happened out of fucking nowhere, or at the very least there isn't a good reason for it. Because there is. Because there is.
And when you find her, you fight for her. You risk it all.
And a capable man could handle rejection without forcing the issue or getting overly flustered. And this is what worries me about Reacher. Desire for women. And if it were gay, it doesn't matter. It's desire for sex, for intimacy, for a relationship. It's all gone. Sure, Reacher is a participant, but he's not an active initiator. And by the way, I see the same thing in a lighter form in 2019's Witcher.
They say witches can't feel human emotion. What do you believe in? You can't contend with me. Sorry I couldn't be direct. I knew you'd fight it.
Now, perhaps I'm extrapolating based on just one show and I'm reading too much into it. But consider how broader media habits have shifted since the 2000s.
No, this guy does have a point. I mean, even in movies like, you know, I would say that there is a lack of romance in blockbuster movies and media, really in general, especially from men to women. Absolutely. So I'm not saying he doesn't have a point on that specifically, but there is something that happened. I'm not going to necessarily blame Me Too altogether, but that had a part to play in it. There's a lot of factors, man, that has a part to play in there. And it's so this could worry you, like, but why would it worry you? I mean, this is a reaction to what's happening in real time between men and women. Men are becoming a lot less initiative because of what they're seeing, because of what they're hearing. Like, it's a, you know, there's a lot that's kind of happening. This just doesn't happen out of nowhere, man. It didn't.
Thousands. It had its serious issues, but TV required you to feel what you wanted. You had to tune in at a particular time to watch your show. You had to select the YouTube video based on a title that said, "This is what I want to watch." Sure, we had the channel surf, but every millennial knows how miserable of an experience that aimless searching was. Now the TikTok mentality is basically, I don't know what I want. Feed me anyway.
What happens when you're just scrolling and you just can't, like, stop?
Well, social media has essentially taken human connection and turned it into a drug.
The moment you turn it on, it's like playing you a new thing, playing you
Right.
done. You're like, "Ah!" And you just sucked into it.
And it's not miserable. You can be entertained for hours without once feeling your own desire.
Okay, this is kind of a shift. This is a shift of but let's see where this goes.
Desire. So that's the meta landscape that this is occurring in.
Okay.
But there's also what I hear from young men. Up until a few years ago, I had never spoken to a young man who planned to spend his 20s on his business and his money and his health while ignoring dating completely.
As a man, you need to before you get into any relationship.
Yeah, well, here's where we're getting to the nitty gritty of things. We're going to hopefully get to some or at least one of the answers as to why we're having these issues in the first place.
Build your frame as a man. Build your internal kingdom.
Staying single put you ahead of everyone. Everyone. Just think about it.
Just go fucking monk mode, everything, like as long as it takes to get to the top.
And that's now something that I've heard repeatedly. And I don't think that's the purely rational monk mode move that it's sometimes framed as. I think it's the result of being raised in a world where feeling your own desires, particularly the sexual and romantic ones, was more dangerous than ever.
Now he's getting somewhere. He might not get to the exact conclusion that I'm going to get to, but at least he's in the fucking ballpark. And I commend Charisma on Command for at least getting there, because I wasn't quite sure if he was going to.
And in part, that's because rejection in the social media era is so much more public.
Thank you.
And perhaps it's in part because the Me Too had a chilling effect.
Thank you. Okay, he's getting there. Okay. All right.
Not just on the men that we wanted it to, but also on the young guys who weren't quite sure where the line between healthy romantic initiation and cancellation-worthy boundaries.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. He's there. He made it.
Boundary crossing was.
I often hear from men that they are now more reluctant to go up to a woman in a bar or whatever.
Yes.
That there's this problem of
and who, I'm not going to say that men don't have a part in this, but who can we like? That's the thing. The women in this case, ladies, look, whoever the two people who are watching this also needs to be addressed as well. Is what is the culture or the environment that they also have a fucking huge hand in creating. You can't just ignore that. You can't just ignore it, because men see it, they feel it, and they're reacting to it.
Fear of being falsely accused of something, and
so they chose to just avoid the whole thing altogether. And I think that's where this passive fantasy we see in Reacher comes from. It's the wish that if you're maximally capable, you won't ever have to face rejection from a woman.
No, it's not that. It's not quite that, bro. It's not quite that. I mean, first of all, I'm like women. First of all, let's talk about the male fantasy. It's not, because Jack Reacher is kind of more than just the whole male fantasy of it. Women are writing these episodes. Like, if I were to look up and see, okay, Reacher season, let's just go season 1, right? I'm gonna look up season 1. I'm gonna look at who were the writers of season 1, right? Because obviously, like, when it comes to like who writes these things, it varies. Okay. Okay. Penny. Okay. We got some women. It's probably mostly men, but we got some women there. It's the showrunner is a guy named Nick. So Thomas Paula. Okay. So let's just say it's like 60-40. Let's just say it's 60-40, because there's a lot of women involved in a lot of women involved in TV. I would even say it's like 51%. But that being said, though, I don't think it's that way because it's the male fantasy to be acted upon because we're afraid of rejection. It's not that. It's not that. It's just the most kind of PC. It's the most unproblematic way for sex and for relationships to kind of exhibit itself. And they haven't talked about how looks and how you have to be the most uber masculine in order to even be desired nowadays, or not just uberly masculine, but just like, because Alan Richardson, I mean, look, the dude has always been he was like Aquaman back in like the fucking Smallville days and shit like that. He's, fucking Henry Cavill. So this is the people who we're casting. So realistically, these dudes do not have to throw themselves to anybody. They just don't. So it kind of like, so if you cast a dude who looks like that, then, and you cast a woman who's, it just kind of, it's the easiest way in order for her not to be anything on the, you don't have to raise no eyebrows as to what's kind of happening in regards to, is he being too forceful? Is he, it's like, no, it's like the woman is initiating and then the sex happens, and that is what it is. And that's how it is in real life. That's what's happening. Right. So if anything, this, like, what's happening in a Reacher, to me, is not, I'm not gonna say it's not problematic, but it just doesn't bug me, because that's actually what it is, man.
You'll never have to even initiate. It'll just find you. And that scares.
That's bullshit because no. That's bullshit. It's not that it'll just find you. It'll find you if you're him, if you're that guy, if you're a Henry Cavill, if you're an Alan Richardson, if you're a Chris Hemsworth, if you're a Chris Pratt, if you're that guy, it will find you. The other fantasy of the girls next door is a girl moves next door and then she likes me for me, and I'm a geeky guy and I could be as geeky and as awkward as I want to, and she'll still like me for who I am on the inside. That's bullshit. That's the fantasy. This is more of a reality, Charisma on Command. So even though I appreciate you being in the ballpark of like where the issues lie, you're now coming to these. The conclusion is off, my dude. The conclusion is you're in a ballpark, but it's not. That's not it, man. I'm gonna keep it going, but that's not it.
Me, because we need men who are connected to what and who they want, who are capable of risking their egos to pursue those desires, and who are capable of dusting themselves and their egos off in the face of rejection. If you don't have that, if you can't feel your most raw, instinctual desires, you will spend your whole life as a sheep. You'll chase socially approved stepping stones, telling yourself that one day you'll go after the real thing. So you can make money, sculpt your body, build a social Rolodex, but you do it all in avoidance of the things that you really want. So my advice to you is that if you find any of this compelling...
The reason why this is a problem is because in Jack Reacher's case, that instance of the sex is not quote unquote what he really wants because he already gets it in abundance. Right? The only way that what he's saying would work is if Jack Reacher didn't look like Jack Reacher. Then you can but he's not mentioning that aspect of it, right?
Ask yourself, where in my life am I avoiding what I deeply want by telling myself that I need to focus on stepping stones? Is there someone that I'm attracted to, but I won't ask out until I have that six-pack in 6 months or 6 years? Is there a business that I want to start, but I won't begin until I have the right made-up credential? Is there a creative project that I haven't shared because I'm not yet perfect enough at that thing? And if something comes up, my advice is to go for it. Risk rejection.
That's... I don't disagree with that sentiment. I think it's a little bit of a reach as to how we got there, because the guys who are telling men to build themselves up, they're not telling men not to experience rejection, because if you're having to start a business or pursue things in life, you're going to have to experience a myriad of rejection more than likely. So I don't think that is the notion of you not focusing on that. It's not about rejecting rejection. Is just more so about adjusting to the current dating market. Now, I'm not going to go into like whether or not a man should build himself up before he starts to date necessarily, but I think he's kind of getting the wrong message from the messages that are being told to young men.
Especially in a world where everyone else is distracted with imaginary stepping stones, the person who can risk rejection and pursue their deepest desires is the one who winds up leading. Now, for me, skipping stepping stones meant that I had to take a good, hard look at my social life. And when I did, I realized that I wasn't approaching the women that I liked the most, or asking for the promotions that I wanted and felt I deserved, or connecting with the people that I admired, all because of social fears and awkwardness. And if this issue sounds familiar to you and you want to stop putting off solving it, you might want to check out...
Oh, this is just an ad. Fuck this guy. Oh, God, I'm all right. We're done. We're done. We're done. Shout out to Charisma. Look, man, get your money. If you want to join Charisma University, then okay. Look, you got me. You got me. You got me. you got me, buddy. But I'm gonna land this video here, man. We're at the 34-minute mark. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'm gonna try to do some more content ever so often for you guys. And yeah, I'll see you in the comments section.